Hello friends, it's Cassie and welcome back for another Trinity stamps video. Today we're going to be playing with the Up, Up, and Away stamps and dies along with the Celebration Balloons dies. We're going to make a shaped card. As you have probably seen, the great big release that Trinity Stamps had, and this was a part of it. So like I said, shaped card. So let's go ahead and get our shaped card started. We're going to pull out the largest balloon, and I have a piece of cardstock that measures 8.5 inches by 11 inches, and I'm going to score that at 5.5 inches. There was probably a better way to use up the paper, maybe fold it a little differently, but this worked, and I definitely will use all the scraps that are left over. Run that through your die cutting machine, making sure that you leave an edge, and then I did die cut another balloon so that I can sit that right over the top of there. But before we go into that, let's talk about our image. Isn't that so cute? It's the Up, Up, and Away. I went ahead and stamped that out onto some Express It cardstock using some Blackout ink by Ink on 3, and then I'm going to color rainbow. Yes, rainbow. It's always a good occasion for a rainbow. So we're going to start with his hat, and I'll put all the colors up on the screen. I am using Copics. So we've got some R24, and the way I typically like to color, if you've ever watched me, you already know, it's lightest to darkest for me most of the time. So this next color is R29, and then I bring in the R89. Yeah, there we go. R89 for some drama, of course. And I'm pretty sparing with my darker color, but, you know, as you get a little braver, you know, give it a try. And then I always like to work backwards from there. So then I'm going back to the R29 and then the R24 using a lot of flicking motions. And then you get some drama in there, and you've got your highlights and your lowlights. And then we'll move on to our oranges. So if you ask my mom, she'll tell you that it was all about the rainbows for me growing up. If I could color a rainbow, draw a rainbow, anything, I was all about it. And there was even I grew up in the 80s. Y'all know what I'm talking about. The very popular sticker line. And always wanted to get my hands on it. If I could have had all the stickers made by this particular brand, I would have been all up in that. But it, you know, it just seemed like, I think it was a little expensive because they were fairly new. So I didn't have a lot of them, but you know, back in the 80s, we had sticker collections, we had sticker books, we did all that. We traded with our friends. It was just, you know, collections. We always had collections going. All right, moving on to my greens, we have YG07 and YG09. And then I tried to bring in my G09, but turns out it's dry as a bone. So something happened with that cap. I'm pretty sure it broke, so I brought in the G19, which wasn't dramatically different than the G09, and I think this works fine. But talk about frustrating. I haven't had it happen a ton, but it's enough that it irritates me because you know, those markers aren't cheap, and so you buy that, and if it dries out, it's obviously a flaw in the marker or the cap, and you can't just refill it and call it a day. You need a new marker. So I'm frustrated by that, but you know, whatevs, right? We move on. All right, for my blues, I have those up on the screen, and I've said this before, oftentimes it looks like a hot mess before it looks like it's something good, and I think this blue balloon is a fine example of that. And then once it's done, I really like it. But just keep working things. You know, it's just paper. That's what I tell myself when it doesn't turn out the way I want it to, or it's not turning out the way I want it to. It's just paper. Keep going. And then I'll work backwards again with our purples. And then we're going to move on to coloring our sweet little gnome. And I've got some colors up on the screen, the E13, and then we're going to come in with some E15. And that's for his skin tone. And you know, it's funny because I think we all, or a lot of us, typically like to color our little gnomes with their little gray beards. And I love that too. I am just as fond of that, but it's fun to kind of mix it up a little bit. So I decided to make him have a little brown beard and customize him a little bit. So we've got some E59. And I will say that I do struggle with hair. I know there's probably plenty of tutorials out there, and I've taken a few, but hair is just something that I struggle with, trying to get that flow and where to put my shadows. So I always use lots of flicking motions, lots of, you know, just working it back and forth, because again, I feel like this is an area where it started out pretty good and then, I don't know, it's like anytime I try to add those hair flicks in the middle. It's just not, we do well at the bottom, but the hair flicks in the middle. I don't know. Is it just me? I don't know. Anyway, all right, so I'm flicking back with our E59, but you saw my darker shade was E49. I'll come in and do a little bit at the bottom with that, you know, and then we'll move on to his boots. We're going to use some warm colors. We've got W6 and we have W8, and then I'll blend that with the W6, and then we are just going to do some little stippling on his little puff with the W3, and then for the clouds we bring in some B00, and once again with all that flicking, and then B12. And we'll do that for all the clouds. I, yes, stamped 3, colored 3. One didn't make it. When I went to do the die cutting, one of those clouds shifted, and it just, it's happened to me a couple times this week already, so I need to pay better attention, I think, when I'm die cutting. All right, so I'll bring out the matching dies and I'll tack that down with some mint tape and run that through my die cutting machine, and then we're going to do our background. So this is just that one piece that I cut out, and I am going to do some rainbow stamping on the side. We're using some first and second generation stamping, and if you're not sure what that really means, first generation is your first stamp down, and your second generation stamping is stamping down without re-inking. So you'll see I'm doing that. I'm varying where I put that happy birthday. It is obviously not straight, and they overlap, and I love it. And then you have this fun little background there. For our sentiment, or again, use the happy birthday, but I decided, because there isn't a lot of real estate on that card, that I'm going to stamp this onto some vellum. And so I'm going to use a black pigment ink. You notice I did use an anti-static powder tool on my vellum, stamp down my happy birthday, and then I'm going to cover that with some clear embossing powder because this is vellum. So, and then I'm going to heat set that, but you do want to keep your heat gun moving. You do not want your vellum to burn or warp. So there you go. And then I'll bring in that matching die and run that through the die cutting machine. And then we'll start adhering everything down with our liquid glue. But I'm not going to do that for the happy birthday. So the happy birthday itself, we are going to, vellum's tricky, and, foam tape's going to show, your liquid glue is going to show. And so I've decided we're just going to use a Xyron sticker maker. We'll pop that in here in a second, but I'll trim off the excess of this cloud because it's a little big. I'm not going to trim off the balloon at the top because I like the way that one is. So I'll run this through my Xyron sticker maker so I can just have that adhesive all over the back and turn this into a sticker. I love doing that. Again, with the stickers, right? Going back to my childhood, turn things into stickers. If I'd have had this as a kid, oh my gosh, I can only imagine. All right, so now we have our card base, which is that balloon. I'm going to take this cloud, which I guess I was struggling with, and then I'm going to go ahead and glue that on the inside of our card to draw the inside, or the outside to the inside, and then I'm going to put my glue directly on my base, because my balloon that I'm going to put on top is a little bigger, obviously, on that one side. So we'll just line everything up, and when that is done, that is going to finish off our card for today. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it inspires you to want to get out there and get a little inky. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button, and definitely consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. And as always, I'll see you very soon in another video. Bye, everybody.